As a final little wrap up here, we have two more senses. So we've had the five senses, um, and this is the sixth sense. And I ask my guests to describe something. It can be a prediction about their future. It can be a sense of something ephemeral. So, Paul, what does the sixth sense mean to you?
Well, so I was thinking about things that could be in the future, things that we don't really understand. And of course, there's lots we don't understand. And that's what I love about science, because it's, essentially science at its best is, we don't know. So we will ask, we will experiment, we will observe. And there's quite a lot of research at the moment that shows that the human heart is actually creating through its pumping an electromagnetic field that emanates out of us. And it kind of completely makes sense, doesn't it? Because we've all been living on Zoom and you go, yeah, there's something missing. There's just something missing. And, you can make those cameras as ultra pixelated as you want. You can have 4K, you can have incredible surround sound, but there's always going to be something missing. And I think partly it's the feeling of when you're in a room with people, you can feel them. We don't know how that really works yet, but if everyone's emitting electromagnetic fields, that means then they're affecting, you affect each other by living in community with each other, by being in community, which is what takes us back to hugging and why maybe hugging is so important, because you're in heart-to-heart communication. There's communication happening. We're releasing pheromones, where there's all sorts of things happening in the biological world that we've barely scratched the surface of. And I think it's really exciting area of research, especially in this time now when we can start being in human contact again, and thinking, I wonder what that really means and what it means for our mental health, that we were shut off from it for a long time. And yeah, so I think that's really fascinating. And this other thing that really interests me is because I'm a big sci-fi fan, and we all love the kind of the Star Wars and the Star Trek, where they jump in a spaceship and then they just fly to another planet. But when you really look into space travel, it might actually never be possible. I was watching this program about it where they were saying, if you could travel at the speed you need to travel, which is faster than the speed of light, which goes against the laws of physics, when you're in a car and you accelerate fast and you get pushed against the back seat, well, if you went anywhere near the acceleration you needed to, you would be smattered like a film of ketchup against the back of your seat, for starters. Start one of the things. And also, what I think we forget, and this is my obsession with nature, is that we are natural beings. We would evolve to live on this planet. We don't even know if we could make it to Mars. They're talking now about the people who go to Mars might never be able to come back and now imagine, they haven't even thought about the mental health implications of that. Living in an environment where you never smell fresh air again, you never can be in touch with the microbiome of the planet. We don't even know if we can survive, literally even survive in a spaceship, let alone get to another star. But what I was listening to this thing about saying, where there's a lot of sightings of spaceships, UFOs, and interestingly, the CIA recently, I don't know if you saw, released lots of material where they go, yeah, we don't really know what this stuff is, but there's loads of it. What is an intriguing aspect of what these craft can do is they often do things that don't seem to obey the laws of physics. So like they can do like right-hand turns, at speed in space, which doesn't make sense. And what if, because we've explored a tiny amount of our own consciousness, what if space travel in the future is possible, but it's done through a different medium, the medium of consciousness? Max Planck, as one of the famous physicists of the 20th century, said, the foundation, from my maths, I conclude that the foundation of everything is consciousness. Matter is secondary, he said. And there's this, the whole idea of the holographic universe, possibly that we're a holographic projection from the edge of the universe. There's a lot of really interesting science going on in this area. So what if consciousness is the basis of the universe, maybe we can travel through consciousness. Think about Luke Skywalker in his final appearance in The Last Jedi. traveling to another place. What if that is the future of space travel? I think that's really exciting. And I love that film Arrival. It's one of my favorite films. And you know how the spaceship at the end, they just appear. And then at the end, when they've done their mission, it just kind of, there's that amazing sequence where it just kind of changes position and then just sort of turns into smoke. And you just think, what if it's run on kind of sort of consciousness propulsion engines or something? So I think sometimes when I hear about people going, yeah, we're going to go and live on other planets, I just think, yeah, but maybe we won't need to travel there, because maybe we can just go there and be in kind of, you know, I mean, I don't know. I think that's really, really exciting. And I think we haven't even, again, turned our attention to it, really.
And was that a subtle plug? Because you were in The Last Jedi.
You know what?
Do you think?
I actually was. But you will have to, and it's a small appearance. And if you are at the beginning settling into your chair and you go like that with your popcorn for a bit, you would have actually missed me. So if you do watch it, pay close attention at the beginning, because one of Hux's officers at the back, who's working the board, and he goes, "Can you hear me?" And the officer goes, "That's me."
Well done.
And it's a quick appearance, but I had an awful lot of fun doing it. And I met some stormtroopers, which was like literally my geek out school.
And you met Luke Skywalker.
And I met Luke Skywalker, even though he wasn't in our scene. God, that was a thrill. Yeah, it was a really, and I was on a Star Destroyer. So what was not to like? And what I discovered, which really amazed me, was the little robots that go around on the floor and go, and then, you know, travel a little. Wasn't CG, it was real. There was a little robot running around on the floor. Oh, it made my absolute day, because I was sure in this day and age that they'd just CG'd them in. No, there was some real little robots, you'll be pleased to hear.
Yeah, just adapted room bars, basically. That's what they are. And so moving on from your sixth sense to the one thing that you think makes no sense whatsoever or is nonsense, what would that be?
Well, the first thing that came to my mind was that my favorite philosopher at the moment is a guy called Charles Eisenstein, and he talks about there's two prevailing stories, myths in our culture at the moment. And one is the myth that we've been living under for probably at least a few thousand years, which is, he calls it the story of separation. This is the thing that I think doesn't make any sense to us anymore. It came about because humanity was trying to separate itself from nature to develop itself. And we've got lots of amazing things from it, like satellites and cars and medicine, Western medicine. But it came at a very, very heavy price. And the heaviest price is that basically the story of separation tells us that we live in a material universe. You and I are separate. We can never know what it is to be each other. And therefore, there's a scarce amount of resources, and what benefits you might be to the detriment of me. And therefore, at some point, we might come into conflict, and it might make sense to my survival to have to kill you. And that is what is at the basis of greed, hoarding, war, violence. If you think about it, the story in our culture, Western culture, not all cultures, that we are separate material beings is the problem that a lot of these, you know, economic problems and social problems and warfare problems are coming from. There's another story, it's older and it's new. So it's a new story for our culture, but there's a lot of indigenous cultures around the world that have held this story for us, thank God. And it's called, Thich Nhat Hanh calls it the story of interbeing, or the story of connection. And that, in that worldview, is, again, it's a bit like what Max Planck said, consciousness is primary. You and I are just different expressions of the same consciousness. So if essentially we are all connected, we're connected to everything, we're connected to each other, but we're also connected to the rivers and the skies. And, you know, there's more bacteria living in my body than there are human cells. So what does that make a human being? If there's more bacteria living in my body than there are my own human cells, what is it to be human? I'm actually just a community of creatures that somehow is plugging into maybe a bigger consciousness, a universal consciousness. So in that worldview, what benefits you has to benefit me in some unknown way. And what is to your detriment has to be to my detriment. So as Gandhi said, I won't be happy until the poorest, most miserable person on earth is cared for. He said, all of our happiness is negatively affected until that one last person is brought out of poverty and sadness. So I think that is, and our culture is finding it very hard to reach that point, and that's why we have so much environmental destruction and misery. But there are lots of cultures that hold to that truth, and we just need to tune back into it and get rid of the nonsense of the story of separation.
The nonsense of the story of separation. I think that's a beautiful moment to end this. And thank you very much for being my guest and for being my friend, because you have, no, but you have, and I will say this publicly to people, you restored my sanity after I was looking after my mom. And you are genuinely one of the nicest and kindest people that I have ever met.
He's on a small retainer. He's paid for that at many opportunities, much I can afford.
Yeah, exactly. So thank you, Mr. Paul Paisley, and that is the end of A Sense of You for You.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you.